Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. That is hilarious. I wonder how long before the inconsiderate parker gets tired of crawling across his passenger seat and learns to park properly. Well done, OP. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Nice parking, sir. So I live in a townhouse where each unit has one designated parking spot. These are pre-chosen for each of the homes, so you can't park in a different spot unless you were to move houses. In these spaces, there's very little room for each car to park. You need to park very carefully and directly in between your lines in order to fit in and not move into a neighboring space. If there's one a-hole parker, the whole line will be messed up and the last person on the line likely won't even have a spot to park. Now, my neighbor, RN, drives an SUV, nothing too big, but apparently big enough that he can't seem to park it in his lines. Ever. Frankly, it's just the fact that he straight up pulls in and doesn't bother to readjust his parking, no matter how crooked or out of his space it may be. I've watched this. I've put notes on the car politely asking him to stay within his lines, but he still parks the same way. It was not too big of an issue until my neighbor, LN, with the spot to my left, bought themselves a car. This meant that me being forced to park out of my spot puts them out of a spot too. Once I received a note on my car from LN telling me not to park in their spot, and that was the last straw. RN always drives into a spot, meaning that his driver's door is on my passenger side. My car's honestly a 23-year-old junker that's been through a significant amount of road torture over the years. If it gets a scratch or dent, etc., it would not be noticeable to me at all, is what I'm saying. So what I've started doing is expertly parking as close as possible to his doors. I'm talking about 2 millimeters of room between my side mirror and his vehicle. I'm a fairly skilled driver and am able to make that parking job with a couple of corrections. I've been taking my time to do this every single day I see him over my lines. Yesterday, I walked outside with my dog and I saw him crawling across his passenger seat to the driver's side. Mission accomplished. And our second story. My employer has been undervaluing me for years, and I finally got to see them sweat after putting my resignation in. I've been working for my employer since I dropped out of college and told myself it was just a temporary job until I figured out what I actually wanted to major in. That was 8.5 years ago. In the 8.5 years I've dedicated to my employer and honing my skill set, I've worked in multiple departments and even was in management at one point for a while. I've always been the person that looked for a challenge. I took on any additional training offered to learn processes, how to work on experimental vehicles, and learn new skills that would benefit and fit my employer's needs. Always was the go-to person who would do overtime or be able to drop everything and go out of town within a day. However, my pay never really reflected the effort I put forth. After 3 years, I was maxed out in terms of benefits, and every year for the past 5 years, I've had no substantial raises. I was content with this for the longest time, until recently, a new coworker point-blank asked me, "Why do you still work here? You're extremely knowledgeable and you're the backbone of the whole shop." I never thought of why I was still here, barely at the starting wage for the job I clawed my way to. I did my job damn better than most people with 20-plus years of experience on the same floor making double what I make. I know they had the experience and were justified in their compensation, but why was I only worth 50% of their worth when I had triple the output? 5 weeks ago, I contacted the owners of our shop and requested a meeting. Those 5 weeks, the owners have been in the building and have acknowledged that they know I wanted to talk with them, but they don't have time to sit down and talk. In those 5 weeks, I decided to look and see what was available in my field. Within a day, I had interviews set up and secured a new position within a week. A new position with our direct competitor who knew of me specifically. They offered me a 30% pay increase, and the benefits package is something I dreamed of ever since I topped out at my employer. Today, after getting my official offer and start date, I turned in my resignation and was immediately called into a meeting with the owners. They immediately tried to match the offer. I asked them, "If you could have been paying me this the whole time, why weren't you?" They didn't have a response. Nothing but silence. I stood up and said, "Thank you for the opportunity you gave me, but I'm still leaving," and walked out the door. So infuriating and liberating at the same time. Edit. I was and still am fearful of change, but it's time for me to take a chance and make a change for the better. I truly hope that if any one of you are in a similar position I was in, you take inspiration from my post and discover what you're actually worth. So afraid you were going to take a counteroffer? Good job. And our next story. That department's closed, ma'am. I've been working at a grocery store for 2 years, and boy do I have plenty of stories to tell. My most recent one happened less than 24 hours ago and finally sent me over the edge to where I needed somewhere to vent these stories. So here I am. So I'm, 20-year-old female, working an afternoon shift as the customer service clerk when I get a phone call at around 5:30. I answer it, give the standard, "Hi, this is Place, how can I help you?" The lady on the phone was pretty nice. She wanted to speak with someone in our floral department so she could get a corsage for some event on Saturday, which was 2 days away at this point. I politely tell her that our floral department is closed. The department usually only runs from 9 to 5, but due to staffing issues, some days the operation hours are shorter. These hours are posted online, so she'd have to call back tomorrow at around 10 a.m. She says that's all right and wanted to know if the florist would actually be able to get her corsage ready in time. I replied, I'm not exactly sure, but they work pretty fast over there, so they might be able to get it ready on time. You'll have to ask them when you call. She says, okay, we both say bye, thank you, hang up. About 20 minutes later, a lady walks in with her younger son and comes up to the customer service desk. I greet her and ask how I can help her. She asks me where the floral department is. I point her in the right direction and admittedly fail to mention to her that nobody is over there to assist her should she need it. However, we were able to call over a person from a different department for customers who need help with blowing up balloons or placing flower arrangements. Anything basic, really. The lady's son comes over to me a minute later asking for help in the floral department, so I page the other department to come help her. When my coworker from the other department goes over to help them, it turns out he can help them with what they need, and he directs them to come back to customer service. So the lady and her son come back to my desk, but I'm not up there as I'm helping one of my checkers with the customer's order. My self-checkout attendant happens to be up at the desk. Customer service and self-checkout are the same desk as my store and starts talking with them. I immediately make my way up there and catch some of their conversation. The lady's talking about how she needs a corsage made for an event on Saturday. As soon as she says this, something clicked in my head and I recognized her voice as the person I spoke to on the phone. Plus, I think it's pretty far-fetched that two different ladies would be asking for a corsage on a Saturday at this time at this place. So I ask her, were you the lady that called earlier? And she just stares at me, doesn't say anything for probably a solid minute, which leads me to believe that it was her. So I continue by saying, as polite as can be, because I said the florist already left and that you'd need to come in tomorrow morning. She continues staring, then screams, I wasn't the one who called. Are you seriously saying that nobody in the store can help me? And I respond with, yes, that's what I'm saying. We already called our coworker from department who said he couldn't help you. If he can't help you and there's no florist, then you'll have to come back tomorrow. My self-checkout attendant was also explaining this to her, and the lady looks at me and screams, you're quite rude, you know that? We came from a different store because they said you guys would help us, which is funny considering all the stores have the same florist hours. Then she looks at her son and says, this is ridiculous, we're leaving. And she stormed out of the store with her son mumbling a, sorry about that, thanks for your help on his way out. What's even funnier is that later that night we got a call from the store that she said she came from. The phone only rang once before they hung up, so we didn't even get a chance to answer, only to look at the caller ID. It left us wondering what happened at that store with her. Perhaps she would have a better outcome if she found an actual florist shop to terrorize. And our last story. People keep cutting through my property. I'm quite lucky to have found a wonderful home in a very private lot that backs up to a river. On one side of me is a subdivision and the other is a very nice park. Behind my house, I own a bit over an acre on the river with a relatively small public easement so people can walk along the river. For many years, the people in the subdivision have used my driveway to streamline their access to the park or to the river. At first, it annoyed me that people were letting their dogs off leash in my backyard and not sticking to the easement, but I got over that. I mean, dogs are great. Our dog was dog aggressive, so it annoyed me to see her frustrated, but she's since passed. Unfortunately, I've not gotten used to people and cars coming down my driveway multiple times a day to cut down on an additional 3 blocks to go around properly. We've recently taken to asking them to refrain from cutting through with limited success. Then I just fenced off the area and put up signs. Today, I confronted an older man who in response started his response back, "Let me explain something to you," and proceeded to tell me he's been doing it for 20 years and he's a disabled vet. If he'd humbly asked in the first place, or even in this moment, instead of, "Let me tell you, Sonny," I may have agreed to let him cut through. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.